Carl had just moved into his new house and was getting ready to measure the layout, but something felt off from the start. First, he noticed the corners of the room weren't even at right angles. Then he poured a cup of water on the floor to check for level. And to his surprise, the water split into two separate streams, flowing in different directions. That was enough to raise a red flag. He grabbed his tape measure and got to work. He measured one of the walls inside, then stepped out to check the same wall from the outside. What he found made his stomach drop. The inside wall was 25 meters longer than the outside. That shouldn't even be possible. At that moment, his daughter suddenly shivered, saying she felt a weird chill. She turned and ran toward the living room to grab a sweater, but Carl watched in shock as she stepped out of the bedroom and vanished into thin air. It was just a few feet, but it was like she had walked into another dimension. At first, Carl thought she might be playing a prank, but when he entered the room, all he saw was her sweater lying on the floor. She was gone. Panic kicked in. He started searching the entire house. Then things got even weirder. The door he opened was supposed to lead back into the bedroom, but instead, it opened into the downstairs living room. The layout of the house was shifting, like it was alive and playing tricks on him. To keep track of where he was, Carl put a chair by the door as a marker. But the moment he turned around, the bedroom had transformed into a long, unfamiliar hallway. Meanwhile, his daughter had ended up in a pitch-black corridor. A door suddenly creaked, opened by itself. She stepped inside and froze. There was a woman in the bathtub, her long hair covering her face. As she leaned in for a better look, an old man suddenly appeared behind her out of nowhere. She screamed, loudly enough for Carl to hear it from across the house. Carl sprinted toward the sound, desperately searching. He finally found the door, kicked it open, and just like that, he was back in the living room. His daughter was sitting on the stairs, pale and trembling. He rushed to comfort her. She whispered, "Dad, I think there's someone else in this house." That's when Carl started putting the pieces together. All those strange things that had happened since they moved in, they weren't just coincidences. He remembered the day he came to check out the house with his wife. He'd heard a man talking inside the walls, but the moment he told his wife to stay quiet, the voice stopped. He'd brushed it off as stress or imagination, but things kept piling up. One night, just before bed, his daughter saw a shadowy figure move across her room. Carl got up later to turn off a light, planning to come back and chat with his wife. But when he returned just minutes later, she was already sound asleep. Confused, he checked the clock. It was 3 a.m., but he could have sworn it was only 10:30. When he got up, the next day, Carl stopped by the local convenience store. The moment the owner saw him, his face went pale. He leaned in and said quietly, "You should leave that house. Every man who's lived there before you vanished." Carl was stunned. Apparently, several families had moved into that house over the years, and each time, the male homeowner had gone missing within weeks. Locals were convinced the place was haunted. Carl didn't say much. He just gave a tired smile and left the store. He had moved to this small town with his family, hoping for peace and quiet so he could focus on his writing. That night, he finally sat down at his desk, opened his notebook, and flipped to a blank page. But at the very end of the notebook, scrawled in messy handwriting, was a message he'd never written: "Get out of this house, or you'll die."